Hello, welcome back. So today is the recent reads, and for this recent reads, I've got a strange mix of books. I suppose it's a good mix, but it's a bit of a bizarre lineup. We got a classic, we got historical fiction, we got a biography, we got some fairy tale retellings, and we got some Christian contemporary YA. So yes, we're gonna be going over the 7 books I've read since the last time I did my recent reads, and also giving my full thoughts on the books I read for my reading books because of Lindsay vlog. Which, note on that, Lindsay actually saw and commented on it, so that was pretty exciting. When I first saw it, I was like a mix of shock and nerves, but then after that, was relieved and starstruck. Yeah, it was so fun. I don't know if she's gonna watch this video as well, but yeah, we'll see. So, I don't think there's anything more to say. Let's get into it. So, the first book I read is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I don't really know how to give a synopsis for this book. So, basically, it takes place in this society where babies are made in a lab and they grow up and they're trained to not like certain things. And then when they get older, they work, but then they also have their free time where they do things and they take medication to suppress emotions. So we follow a few characters in that society. I think that's the best synopsis I can do right now. So I was a bit nervous to read this one because since it's a classic, I figured, oh, I'm probably not going to understand that much of it. And while reading it, I understood more than I expected, which was nice. But there are definitely a few times where I was like, I am lost. What is going on? So yeah, there's that. One thing I was surprised by, I mean, I guess I thought I had heard quite a bit about Brave New World before reading it, but I guess not that much because there's like a sexual element to it, and we'll talk more about what that means in terms of content a bit later, but like basically it's in the society sex is very commonplace and it's even being practiced amongst children. I remember when I first read a line that suggested that I was like, wait, did I read that right? Like, yeah, and of course there's not much room to say since it takes place in the society and this is all these people know about how wrong that was. There is a line that we get where it says that a boy is uncomfortable with the advances a girl was giving him, but I mean that's all we get. And there's nothing said about there being anything between adults and children, but I mean in this society it's not that far-fetched to assume that's also happening, which is very unfortunate. So yeah, there's that. So with the classics, with this being a classic, I noticed there's a few things in this book where I feel like, oh, I bet if I had more time, wasn't just trying to get through this book, I could allow myself to sit and think about these things, but that wasn't the case with reading this book. Like, I remember one thing that I thought I could chew on a bit was in the beginning, they keep repeating the phrase from the horse's mouth. So I thought, oh, that must be significant that they keep repeating that phrase. So yeah, and interestingly enough, I know like it's a classic, it probably has been into a movie, but there is a part in the beginning where the way it was written, it felt like almost a movie format. Like it kept switching between different things, and I was like, oh, this would be perfect for a film where you show a little bit of this, and then a shot of this, and like all those things. So that was very interesting. At one point, I was well, at many points, I was wondering, wait, who is the main character of this? Because we follow quite a few different characters. It's hard for me to remember a lot of their names right now. I remember one girl we were following. I thought her name was cool, but I can't remember it right now. I'm pretty sure it started with an L, like Luena or something. I don't know. Yeah, and then a few other guys who are a bit more opposed to society and all these things. So yeah, there was that. I mean, maybe there's not supposed to be a main character, but yeah, there's that. Another interesting thing about this book is like the Christianity portrayals. So it's interesting because in the beginning of the book, it's kind of said that Christianity would be opposed to this kind of society, which would be true. But then when we see a little bit more material, because there's parts of this world that aren't quite taken over by the society, that they're just allowed to live in the old ways, and we see a bit of Christianity there. But what's portrayed there isn't really accurate. But I've thought a few times that like maybe that was intentional to show that like because so much of the world is taken and all that's left of the religions has to be concentrated in this one place. Maybe it was intentional to show that things get mixed up. So, and then I looked on the Wikipedia page that said like suggested pages anti-theism. So I thought I don't think this book is that. So, and there's that. All right, and now for content. So while yes, this book takes place in a society where sex is commonplace, thankfully we don't really get any details of that. We don't really get any scenes or anything like that. So it's just kind of talked about and not talked about in a graphic way. So yeah, there's that. I'm not sure what else to note in terms of content. So yeah. Alright, then I'm excited to talk about this next book. So the next book I read is Come Forth as Gold by Erica Dansereau. I think that's how you pronounce it, but anyways. So this book follows a boy named Claude. He's the youngest of three brothers. He lives in a relatively good family in this small town in Nevada. And then we also have his best friend Kitty, and her life is not so that great. Her mom left when she was very young, and her dad is not really a good dad. He's an alcoholic and like all these things. But they've bonded together for all this time. And then tragedy strikes and things change for Claude, and Claude is grappling like, why, God, are you letting all this happen? And like stuff like that. So I didn't realize, I know I probably read this and then just forgot about it before reading this, but this is historical fiction. The majority of the story takes place in the 1940s. So, yeah, that was interesting. And I like, with historical fiction, like, even though the situation reading about, like, wasn't real, like, the little details in it, and then you kind of learn about the time period through that. Like, this book had me looking up small towns in Nevada because I wasn't sure. Like at first, I was like, "Wait, are these towns like real places?" Oh, and they are real places. And in fact, the author intentionally wanted to set the book in this town because not a lot of people know about this town. So, yeah, I do feel like the author could have taken more advantage of the genre and adding more details and stuff like that. But I think it's what we had was pretty good. And another thing I read in like the little author's note acknowledgments, whatever it was at the end, is that this story is actually based on true events in her family history, and I think they even grew up in that same town, so that was interesting to hear. So when I first picked this up, I thought this was primarily going to be a romance, but this was not as romance heavy as I expected, which I appreciated, but like, yeah, I mean, the romance was definitely a major part, but there are also other major plot points in this story as well. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So while reading this, I wanted, as I was reading this, to give this 4 stars, but then I read the ending epilogue and I was like, what? Why would you end it like that? So, I mean, obviously, I can't talk too much about that because that'll be spoilers. But so, and apparently there's a sequel that still follows these characters. So, I mean, I'm a little confused on why there's a sequel one. I mean, I mean, obviously, the sequel would have to take place between the end of the story and the ending epilogue. So, yeah, there's that. I'm interested to read that one. Yeah, we'll see. So, for content for this one, so there's talk about prostitutes, like a character being a prostitute, and like some things men would do, but not really too much detail on that. And then there's talk about later in the story, like, oh, the guy only wants one thing, which we obviously know what that means. And in terms of romance content, there's, I think it's just kisses. I think there are scenes where like the characters are like lying on a bed. I don't even know if it's a bed; it's just a service, but like nothing happens. So yeah, that's all. This is a good book. So yeah. I don't have much I don't have much to say about this next one, so we're just gonna keep it short and sweet. The next book I read was Speed to Glory by Natalie Davis Miller. This is a biography of this guy, Cullen Jones. And his story is, so when he was, I think 5, he was at a pool and he nearly drowned. But then instead of being afraid of water after that point, he went right into swimming, took swimming lessons and all these things, and eventually became an Olympic swimmer. So yeah, that is very cool. So this is part of a biography series by Zonder Kids, which I assume is a subset of Zondervan. And I've read one other biography in this series, which was about Ben Carson. I read that quite a few years ago, and I think I like that one more than this one, but I don't know if I were to read that other one now, I might feel differently. This is okay. I mean, obviously, as you know, if you follow me for a while, I'm not that good at reviewing biographies. So I guess the one critique I'd have is that there's like pictures with like text underneath. You know how they usually have in books, but sometimes the text underneath the same thing will be said in the regular body of text, which is not a fan of that, but I mean, I'm not the target demographic, so whatever. So for content, yeah, I guess the main thing for content I would note is that it's like talk of drowning and stuff with that, and there is mention that the guy Cullen went on his first date when he was 11, but I mean, not many details on that, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. Moving on. All right, now the moment some people might be waiting for, which is my full thoughts on the books I've read for my Reading Books Because of Lindsay from BFCG vlog. I don't know if there's anything more to do that. Let's just jump right into it. So the first book I read for that vlog was The Lady of Lanaria by Michaela Bush. So this book follows Evangeline. She is kept in a tower by this woman who is supposedly her mother, and she stays there because she's told like the world outside is dangerous, they don't like us, and like all these things. But then through some form of events, she ends up meeting this guard named Gabriel. Gabriel is a guard, and he's been looking through the tower, and they kind of bond. And there's a curse going around in the kingdom that Gabriel knows about, but Evangeline, so the things that she hears from Gabriel and that her mother is saying, things aren't adding up. So yeah, I don't know what else I could say other than that. So I enjoyed this more than I expected to. I remember saying in the video, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like this, but I did like it. Gave it 3.5 stars. So yeah, I liked how there were different elements than the Rapunzel I know. So there's like the curse going around, and also like it taking longer than expected for Evangeline to leave the tower. Thought that was interesting. Another thing I wanted to comment on with the, I guess, abuse story, you could say, for the thing. So one thing that I know that the Disney movie Tangled is praised for, which, I mean, it's praised for a lot of things, but one element that people often talk about is the portrayal of Mother Gothel and how it's like an accurate portrayal of gaslighting and like that kind of abuse. So that kind of is kind of somewhat of the same thing in Lady of Natalie. I mean, I haven't seen Tangle in quite a bit, so I don't know for sure. But at times I felt like it could have. But it seems like the Mother Gothel equivalent is kind of more mean, and she's rarely ever nice to Evangeline. So there were times when I thought that like maybe they could have had her be nice a few more times in order to make us understand Evangeline's perspective more. But I guess at the same time, that also makes sense because, I mean, this is all Evangeline has ever known. So, yeah, that makes sense. And then for the magic content in this book, I've heard Lindsay say that, like, this story and this series, by extension, because it's a 6-book series, it can be considered non-magic even though they use the word magic. So, and I mean, apparently it's explained in one of the other books how it's not really magic. But for this, like, what I think, like, just having read this first book, I don't see why it has to be considered non-magic, because the magic that is in this book is still seen in a bad light. So, yeah, I feel like it should be fine to be considered magic, but, so yeah, for regular content for this book, they're apparently looking at, feel like for some of these books, I like try to remember some of the content and then I look at Lindsay's reviews. So I didn't think there was that much kisses when I first read it, but then looking at Lindsay's reviews, there are more than I remember apparently. So yeah, there's that. And then of course with the nature of the story, there's a lot more like violent content. I don't know how to explain much of that, but I mean, I think it's fine. So yeah. Not sure if I'm going to continue on with this series, but I guess we'll see. Alright, the next book I read for that video was First Date by Krista McGee. So this book follows Addie. She's a typical girl at this Christian school. She starts Bible study with her friends and like all these things. Life is pretty much okay for her, but then she gets called into the principal's one day and she is told that he's approved it. She's, how do I explain this? He's given the okay for her to be a part of this reality TV show where it's kind of like The Bachelor, but like these girls are all competing to go on a prom date with the president's son. So at first Addie is like not sure of that, but eventually she goes and things happen. Yeah, I think that's the best synopsis I can give. So this is a contemporary Esther retelling in a way, although it's interesting because like it seems like a lot of the elements that you'd find in the Esther story like is like it takes place in like the frame time of just like the like competition, so you speak, to be the new queen. It kind of puts the elements that are also later on after that in this story and all in this part of the story, which isn't really elaborated that much on in scripture. So that was interesting elements because of that. And so Addie makes friends with this one girl named Kara. I never know which way you pronounce it. It's funny in my vlog. I thought if this were a Melody Carlson book, I would think she would turn out evil. Like, and then Lindsay in her comment was like, "Oh yeah, I can actually see that if this was a Melody Carlson book." So that was cool that we both made that connection. So yeah, their friendship is nice enough, though I do wish there was more redemption. There was a redemption for at least one of the other girls in the competition. Like it didn't even have to be like Lila. Like like it could have been like any of them. Like one thing, like there's one girl mentioned early on, Anna Grace, who she does a few things and then she kind of disappears into the ether, but she wasn't eliminated, but she's just kind of forgotten about. So yeah, there's that. And then so like none of the other girls get a redemption, but the man gets a redemption. Hmm. Is that telling? No, it's fine. It's fine. And just know, if this was a different book and too many girls got a redemption, I'd be saying, "What are you, feminist?" So yeah, I'm annoying. But I guess the one critique I would have for this book is that it seemed like America, since this is like a reality TV show in America, it seemed like America liked Addie a bit too much at first. Like, she makes a snippy comment towards Jonathan, and America loves it. She plays a kazoo for the talent thing, and America loves it. She seemingly has bad table manners, and America loves it. It's just like, this is a bit much. And, like, I get that, like, back in the day, it was like it's like, I guess the whole point is that it was the appeal of the every girl, which, like, I mean, it's probably fine for the time, but in the 2020s era, it feels a little tired, at least for me. So, yeah, there's that. I thought the romance was nice enough between Addie and Jonathan, so, yep. And then, so for content, there's one scene where, like, the two characters go on a golf course, and then there's accidentally pictures taken of that, and then there's rumors like, oh, they did things somewhere privately, and while it's never said what that thing was, you kind of know what is being implied, but it's never spelled out. And at first, when I read my review, I was like, well, I don't remember any kisses, but I bet now I'm gonna read Lindsay's review and find there were kisses, but no, there actually wasn't any kisses in this book, so there's that. Yeah, nothing really else to note than that. So this I I keep I'm not really sure if it's a series, but there's two other connecting books that you're supposed to read in a certain order. And the next book is going to be about Kara, which, so yeah, I would like to read that one. So yeah, I don't know what else to say other than that. All right, I had to take a bit of a break to charge my computer, and I didn't charge it that much, but we only have two books to talk about left, so it should be fine. All right, the next book I read was Sketchy Behavior by Erynn Mangum. So this book follows a girl named Kate. She's 16 in high school, loves to draw, and one day her art teacher brings in a police officer, detective, whatever, to come in and lays out a description of a person and asks the kids to draw it. So Kate takes what is written out and draws it, and then it turns out she actually accurately drew the face of a known criminal in the town, so she is celebrated as a hero for this, but of course this also makes her a target. So yeah, this is my first book by this author, and I did like the writing of this quite a bit. It was funny, and I feel like there was more ums in this book than there normally would be in a book. So, and I like that realistic touch. I liked Kate well enough. She was kind of sarcastic and kind of like, I don't know, something about why main characters like that. I'm just like, yes. So one thing that I did not know, or and again, maybe like with Brave New World, maybe I saw this and then forgot. This is apparently suspense, which I did not expect. I mean, I probably should have figured it out considering the criminal synopsis of all that. So yeah, it's apparently suspense, and I did not really care for that as much. I didn't like how that affected me. Like, I remember one day, my family were like asking if I wanted to go for a walk, and my first thought was like, "Wait, is that safe?" So yeah, that was an interesting thing. I was surprised that there was no romance in this. There was kind of a suggestion, like a possible could be romance, but nothing comes of that in this book. And there's no, and there's, and it's also like not as happy with the ending. I feel like, wait, I need more answers than that. There's a lot of potential for a sequel to this, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So yeah, I guess we'll have to do what we have to do. So for content, the one thing I have noted is that there's a comment about an actor being shirtless, and Kate does not like that. So there's that. Yeah, nothing else really to note. Other than that, I would say, like, this is again first Erynn Mangum book. I would like to read more YA from this author, but I don't think this author has any more YA. Like, even on Goodreads, even the books that are tagged as young adult, they're actually about main characters in their 20s. So that's not what I look for in a YA. So yeah, not sure what more I'm gonna read. There was another book that seemed a little interesting, and I think I will still read The Broken Branch. And maybe I'll read Leap Day in the Square. I think the thing with that one, like, it's the start of a series, and I I think I want to wait until the series is done before I consider reading it. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, interesting. And the last book uh, I read to talk about in this video is A Thieving Curse by Selina R. Gonzalez. So, yeah, this book follows Raylan. She is the princess of Ainlay. Is that how you pronounce the kingdom? I don't really know, something like that. She's she's the princess, and as the only daughter, she's resigned from her young age to marry the king of a neighboring kingdom in order to keep alliances and all that thing. So she lives her life, and yeah, she lives her life, and she is really close with her brother Gareth. It seems like Gareth is the only one in her family who understands her. So there's that. But then, as close to her 18th birthday, they make the journey to the other kingdom to marry the prince. And I forgot to mention the prince that she's supposed to marry in this kingdom is Prince Tristan. But on the way, they get attacked, and Raylan gets separated from them. And then she gets rescued by this dragon man, and then she ends up with a cave with that man and a few other people. And of course, she's freaked out at first, but it seems like through the way these other people are that maybe this guy is not what he seems. So yeah, there's that. So I have very mixed feelings about this one. I'm still not really sure of a rating for this one. So I liked like the sibling dynamic. I liked reading about Raylan and Garrett's relationship. That was pretty nice to see. And I liked how it was different, the differences from the Beauty and the Beast that I know. I should have mentioned earlier, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So yeah, I liked the different elements of that. But then there comes my reservations, concerns. So through a part of this book, I was feeling some weird feelings that I felt when I thought of some things in middle school. So, yeah, and I thought like maybe that was just down to the situation, but also in the way they portrayed Alexander. He was talking about like having a silky voice, and he seems kind of, I don't know, smooth and like all these things, but he was less like that in the parts that I was feeling weird, so I don't know what I do with that. Yeah, and then I guess you might as well just transition to the content, because that's where the rest of my users. There were some comments toward the end about a marriage bed that I'm just kind of like, not a fan of that. There's also the main guy, Alexander. So as a dragon, he's partly like a dragon, mix of a dragon and man kind of thing, but then he can transition to a full-on dragon, and when he transitions back into the dragon man form, he's naked. So there's talk of that. Not much details about that, but there's mentions like, oh, that's indecent. So yeah, and then there's also a thought that Raylan has about what it would be like to share a bed, but in a non-sexual context. So there's that. So all these things, not sure what to do, but I am interested in the second book, which is called A Lonely Dance, which is Tristan's story. And Lindsay even said in her comment, like, I think you would like that one more, which I do hope she's right, and that should be interesting. So again, this is Tristan's story, which Tristan was a villain in this. So I'm curious to see what the author does with his character. Very curious to see that. And also, one thing I'm a little confused about, when I looked on Goodreads, it said this book was cleanish and fade to black, which, like, are you talking about the series at large, or just this book? Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, Lindsay's read 3 books in the series, and she doesn't like Fade to Black. She hasn't said anything about that. And with this one, I mean, I guess you can see that in that last chapter before the epilogue. I guess some people would consider that fade to black, but I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. Like they don't even make it to the room on page. So yeah, there's that. So now that I've read two fairy tale retellings, like I made a whole list of fairy tale retellings to like research to potentially add to my TBR in case I do like the genre. So I'm kind of wondering if I should look into those books already or if I should wait until I've read the other fairy tale retellings for this year, which isn't that much more. So yeah, I guess we'll see. So that is all for this video. The past week of doing the reading vlog, that was a very stressful week, not only with all the books that I had to read, but also I had something going on pretty much every day, so it was a bit of a stress. It was probably the worst week to do that kind of vlog, but it's fine, we got through it, and for the rest of the year, I'm going to be a bit more relaxed on the reading, because although we are not quite halfway through the year, we are more than halfway through my TBR, so I'm gonna calm down on the reading a bit. So yeah, hopefully that'll be better. So that is all. Goodbye.